Welcome, and thank you for joining the Q&A for preparations to be together for an unknown period of time. I'm Gwen Deglis, Deputy Director for the American Cinematheque. I'd like to invite you to visit our website, americancinematheque.com, where you can find information about our upcoming programs and how you can support the American Cinematheque by making a donation and becoming a member. I would like to thank Greenwich Entertainment for this Q&A with filmmaker Lili Horvát, moderated today by film critic Amy Taubin, contributing editor to Sight and Sound and Film Comment. Enjoy.
Hello, I'm Amy Taubin in New York, and I am welcoming the director of this fabulous film, Preparations, very long title, Lili Horvát, who is not in New York. Where are you, Lili?
I'm in Budapest, Hungary.
Okay.
Hello.
It is such a wonderful film. I've seen it now 3 times, and I've written about it twice. And I fell in love with it at first sight, which is so interesting because it's a film that begins with someone falling in love at first sight. And so I first want to ask, did that ever happen to you? And why did you want to make a film that's based on that experience?
I think, yeah, this whole story did not happen to me, luckily. But of course, I have some similar experience. I think it's not only me. I think most of us grown-up people have this experience that when we fall in love, then we project a lot of things onto that person we are falling in love with, and once we come really close to him or her, then it turns out that it's not the very same person as in our imagination, and I think that's a common experience that most of us share, and yeah, that happened to me before, not only once.
Yeah, it happened to me too, many times. And if we can just go back into the conception of the film, did you always know you wanted to make a film in which the protagonist really is a woman? And when did you decide to give her this very particular profession?
Yeah, it was always a woman I had in mind, but yeah, I gave it a lot of thought what her profession should be, and I decided that she should be a really smart woman, because it elevates the whole story. If you don't see a crazy woman racing after some guy, or you see a seemingly crazy woman, but then it turns out that she's a super intelligent woman, and it's not that simple anymore, because then yeah, it tells maybe that yeah, even the smartest ones allow themselves things when they are in love that they wouldn't do on other terrains of their life. So that's why I wanted her to be a really intelligent woman with an important profession. And then choosing neurosurgery was at first an intuitive decision, maybe an even funny decision, because we say that if someone's not really smart, then we say that well, she's not a brain surgeon, and then in our film, yeah, she is. But then I started to research this, because I didn't know anything about brain surgery back then, and then I started research that area a bit, and then I discovered the immense dramaturgical possibilities for our film in this field.
And at some point, did you think, because at a certain point I thought Well, more than she's in love with him, she's in love with consciousness itself. And it's that terrific speech that he has when he's reading from the book and his book. And he says, and he's talking about the mystery that we have inside of us, and that's consciousness. And of course, throughout the film, that's what she's trying to figure out, not him. I mean, she's not really after him. She's after, I think, something that's going on inside of her.
Absolutely. And a lot of this love itself, a lot of this happens in our brains, but even brain surgeons are not fully aware of where and how this happens. So it is really a mysterious organ. And the thing that our thoughts and feelings, our physical processes, is something that even a neurosurgeon can hardly understand.
Yes. Do you want to talk specifically about a scene that I think was key, but must have been so difficult to pull off and edit, which is the scene of the brain surgery? And when she actually touches, a brain and decides when to stop cutting, and that's how they begin their relationship after that. So how did you go about doing that scene?
Yeah, the practical side was not very easy, because I felt that in this kind of poetic film, I always need a counterpoint for this poesy, and I wanted to see like real flesh and blood, and that somehow I can show her being really a pro, in her profession. And of course it's not something that is easy to shoot, because I wanted to and couldn't afford those prosthetics, and it never looks the same. And luckily I made acquaintance and then friends with one of the top neurosurgeons in Hungary, who accompanied me throughout the making of this film with his advices. And that we didn't shoot in his hospital, but this operating theater scene was shot there in his hospital, and they were, yes, the patient himself and doctors were very, very supportive towards us. But it was, I can confess that I was so relieved when we were out of that operating theater. It was only the DP and I inside, and it was really a bad feeling being in there, and just being, I never felt so dirty in my life, because I was afraid that we will, with our camera, although everything was so sanitized and everything, but still I had a bad feeling. But luckily nothing happened, and the patient was all right. And then the day after, we shot in that very, very same setting, we shot the scene with the actors. But we already had this documentary pictures by then, and that helped us a lot with the actors. I shot with my phone during the operation, and I shot the patient, and then I deleted those shots, but I showed it to the actors so that they understand what is actually happening in there.
Okay, we could go in two directions, because you brought up two really important things. One, how the film was shot, and that it was shot on film. And the other is how you cast actors that weren't film actors. So let's start with how and why did you shoot on film rather than on digital?
Well, as the DOP, Robert Mali, and I we've been film school classmates, so we practically did everything together from the beginning on. And we have a method that we start to approach the visualization of a screenplay, and then we start to look for some point of references, like paintings and photos and films by other directors, and we discovered that the films that we were showing each other in this phase were never films of today or yesterday, but films from a long time ago, and like really cinematic works. For instance, Hitchcock's Vertigo, or Truffaut's Adèle H, or the work of Krzysztof Kieślowski. And then we decided that, okay, we should make an old-fashioned film, let's say, a film that looks a bit like old cinema, and we can play with those stereotypes that are used in films and turn them a bit upside down. So that was one thing, and the other thing was that this film is very much about fantasy and projection, and so it's a mysterious material, or it is meant to be something like that, and we felt that we should escape this perfectness of today's digital images, this perfect sharpness, for instance, and rather go for the secret that celluloid carries within itself, the grains, the texture, the whole thing that is never completely perfect.
Right. I mean, that's what I thought of when I saw it. I thought how much we've given up in digital, which is the whole sense that somehow, without saying a word, film itself has an unconscious, and that's the grain, and that's how we read it, that there's this uncontrollable part of it. And that was so important for me. But you gave her, Marta, two faces, actually. I mean, she has the face that's much more the modern digital face, which is her blue eyes and her slash of red lipstick and that very precise, straightforward image. And then you give her the other face that you see like through the rain and through shadows. I remember a cut near the beginning, from seeing that straightforward character to seeing her through the rain window of the taxi inside, and she's all in shadow. And you play with those two, they're almost like two sides of her throughout. So could you talk a little bit about that?
I always wanted to portray her as a multi-layered personality, as every one of us is probably, but she's definitely someone like that, and that is a bit like what we were talking about at the beginning. That she's an obsessed woman being in love, but at the same time she's a professional neurosurgeon. She's someone who is really straightforward, but at the same time she disappears from her previous life without giving signs to her friends. So I wanted her to be really complex, a close personality who's still very likable.
A lot of people have talked about, when they've written about this film, about genre. And a lot of people have brought up film noir. And it is not, for me, very much of a noir, although it has certain images that are kind of noirish. I thought of it as this really strange combination. And it's amazing that you could put them together, of a screwball comedy and a psychodrama. Um, and um, and it seemed to me that they work together almost as a couple in a way that I've never seen them. But if we could talk about psychodrama a little bit in relation to showing not the action, although there is a lot of action in the film. She's kind of pursuing him, kind of. But how you show interiority without having someone talk about themselves in voiceover like you usually have in psychodrama. How do we know we are inside her head?
Yeah, it was always meant to be a story of an inner journey, and a lot of the tension and the action happens inside, and not only inside her, I think, but inside the head of the viewer. So I wanted to rely very much on the viewer's own fantasies and projections and memories. So I didn't want. I wanted an active audience for this film. It's not like I'm saying what you should think in every distinct moment of the movie, but it's really a bit up to you. Of course, I have something in my mind, a storyline from the beginning till the end, but still, I think this film gives a lot of space for interpretation, and how you as a viewer see what might have happened between them and what's next. What was your other question?
For me, there was this amazing moment that I don't think I've ever seen in a film before. And it's very early. And she's called his office at the hospital and they put her on hold. And the music in the hold is that thing that every kid plays on the piano, Beethoven for Elise. And then you cut to her walking through the hospital the next day, and you hear that same music continuing. And you know, it's not background music, it's what's in her head. And from that moment on, I was totally like inside her head.
Yeah, and it was quite difficult to find the balance in the editing room. I mean, I had a wonderful editor with whom I worked for the first time now. He's Caro Stolai, who worked as an editor also on Ildikó Enyedi's films on Body and Soul and her new film as well. And so he's really a wonderful editor, and we were experimenting a lot with these things that you mentioned, that how to be in her head but still not to be cheap, you know, because it's so you have patterns, cinema patterns to achieve that. It's really easy to make, but with sound effects and etc. and blurry images, and then you see that, okay, that's imagination. But we wanted it to have a realistic level throughout the film. So if you want, then you can interpret the whole thing in a very logical way, and if you wish so. And we wanted to be strict to ourselves and not to overuse these very impactful things that we could have. So this thing with the music continuing in the next scene, that we allowed ourselves, but there aren't many things like that in the film, I guess.
Well, it sets you up incredibly to say, okay, I mean, I didn't say that consciously. Now I'm inside her head, but I was. And when I looked at it a second time, I said, oh, that's how I got there.
Mm-hmm.
I got there because the music put me inside.
Because I didn't want to be like pushy as a director. I didn't want it to be seen and felt that, okay, that was her concept, you know.
Right. I mean, it's an amazingly subtle film in every way. So can we talk about the actors and what it was like to work with actors who were very accomplished but had never really had big parts in cinema before? Did you have to tell them specific kinds of things, or yeah?
With Natasha, who plays the lead role, we had a long rehearsal process, even a long casting process. Poor Natasha had to come, I don't know how many times, to do newer casting rounds, because that was her first big screen role, although she was already 35. So a lot of people warned me that not to take this risk and take a more experienced actor. And but I somehow felt that I connected with her very well, and that I felt that we together have this potential to bring this character to life. And we, because when I decided that, okay, that will be her, then we were still really far from this character. But I just, I thought that, okay, let's get to work, and then we'll see how far we get. And we started to rehearse like we had two parallel things going on. That we were rehearsing the usual way with her partners, and the actual scenes from the film, not every scene, but some important scenes. And parallelly, the three of us, Natasha, me, and the DP, we met every week, like twice or three times in her apartment, and we just tried to achieve the really smallest details of this character. So like how she looks into a mirror, how she opens a door, or how she sits down, and how we try to find the way she's alone, and how she walks. And so really the smallest things. And we went to the bridge, the three of us, and we were rehearsing, but really not so not the real big scene, but really this small things. And I noticed that every time we see each other, then I felt that between two rehearsals, she was working on herself as well, and that was so inspiring for me. So, and then it was actually the last dress rehearsal, like 2 days before the shooting, that I saw that, okay, there she is. It's done. And actually, when we were already shooting the film, it was only fine tuning. We really understood each other.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's amazing because she seems almost to be she just is, you know, rather than we are ever conscious of things that she's doing to communicate something or other about this woman who's going through this strange experience. She just is that.
I'm
So
happy to hear that, because yeah, that's our ambition, the ambition of directors and actors, I guess, all the time, to have this, to achieve this, because she is not, of course, she is different in real life, but she managed to, yeah, be Martha for.
and the actor who plays Janos, which is in a way, you know, it's a reversal of her taking the lead and him being just there, responding or not responding. And so how did you work with him? Because it's such a weird balance. We can see that, except for being brilliantly intelligent, he's this kind of ordinary middle-aged guy. I mean, not someone you fall in love with at first sight, only with his mind, maybe. So
Yeah.
how did you do that? Make him anti-charismatic.
I don't see him as anti-charismatic, because I see that he also in real life has a significant intelligence, and I was absolutely looking for someone who has a strong personality. Exactly, because what you just told, that we see him from a distance for a very long time in the film, and we get to know him through the woman's eyes. So it is very hard for him to show something for this character, and I wanted him to be like not being like anyone. And it was yes, you're right, I wasn't looking for a male beauty, or yeah, for a very handsome actor or something like that, who, yeah, not a very athletic actor, but I was looking for someone who, yeah, who has the intelligence for this part, and the personality, and I think that women don't always fall in love. When they really do fall in love with someone, then they don't always pick the most athletic ones, you know. And yeah, and Victor Bodo, who plays this part, he started his career as one of the most successful actors, and he had big roles in theater and in film, and still in his early 20s he completely quit acting and turned towards theater directing, and he became really successful, and he hasn't taken an acting part for 15 years maybe. Mm-hmm. And that was his big comeback, this film. That's the first role he accepted in 15 years, and I kind of like this idea of only from this story, you know, you can feel that he's not the easiest guy on earth, and you should feel that, okay, this is a 40 plus man, and with his own problems and his past and everything, and I like this thing that he has an experience of quitting something and giving up something, and that is a bit what happens with this character in the film. So yeah, that was it.
Yeah, I mean, they are both wonderful, and it is so wonderful that you almost always do see him through her eyes. So, well, people also talk a lot about vertigo when they talk about this film, and there are obvious references, but one of the big ones being when he comes and stands outside her door and confesses his whole story, which is like Judy in Vertigo when she finally gets to read the letter that she writes, which is her story. And at that point you say, oh, I mean, it's such a surprise who he thinks he is and what he has to say. And so when you were working on the script, was that kind of confessional or explanation speech always there and always there in that place?
Yes, but it wasn't the same text in the screenplay. I wrote this text until the last day of editing, really, or still maybe still in sound post. I was still working on it because it's I had to realize that it shouldn't be self-pitying. It shouldn't be cheesy, you know, and it's that it should be a real man with a real problem, and we shouldn't think of him. And you know that if you want, he is right as well, because maybe they really met each other for a brief time, and maybe the woman projected a lot more into this encounter, and she proved to be right. Her intuition, proved her to be right. But if you think of it, then with the man's eyes, it's like seeing this woman suddenly who is there and came for you. Then you you can feel his shock and terror of this situation. So I wanted to give him also justice, but it wasn't easy, and I can't say that I'm fully satisfied with this text still now. It's it was something that happens a lot in filmmaking, that it was a beautiful shooting day, and he acted really wonderfully, and I felt that, okay, that's he's so great. And I remember me texting him at night that you were so wonderful, thank you. And he texted me back, okay, but the text was so brilliant, and he thanks me, you know. And then in the editing room we saw, okay, that's not quite so brilliant as we thought it was. And then I wrote many versions for this text.
And so you re-recorded a lot of it.
Yes.
Well, for me, it works wonderfully. And it's when he turns into this human being rather than her fantasy of a human being, where the film is gradually going there. But it's interesting that he takes a leap with his character for us, that she can't make that leap alone to turn him into a fully human being. And of course, once he does that, you know, it's just like she comes out, looks totally different, and says, he looks like, what have I gotten myself into?
Exactly.
Which is why I thought it was like much more like a screwball than a noir. And was the last sequence of him leaving and her being alone on the street and looking up at that enormous speaker and just hanging there, which also reminded me of Jimmy Stewart standing at the edge of the bell tower in Vertigo saying,
right,
what future? Was that always the ending of the film?
Yeah, not always, but I had, for the first one or two drafts of the screenplay, I had a breakfast scene with a similar meaning, like okay, then what's next with this stranger? Right. But then I found this when I was developing the screenplay, then I involved this hi-fi hobby of his, and like he's not taking this woman to a restaurant, but to his loudspeaker, vintage loudspeaker dealer, and then I liked this scene a lot, and then I decided to return to that with the end scene, and I like this idea of this loudspeaker as a black cloud hanging above her.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect ending, but it also brings back up just one more thing that I wanted to ask you about, which is music. You know, toward the very beginning, she finds that clip online of him as a child singing Schubert, The Trout it is, yeah. And that is such an extraordinary moment, because I imagine a lot of people watching the film either sang that or fell in love with or were the mother of a child who sang like that. And it's at that moment that you realize how she is constructing him in her head and how important music in that. So we only have a couple of minutes, but could you talk a little bit about the relationship between music that's part of the narrative and the very wonderful score that you have, which is used extremely discreetly, but is nevertheless wonderful. When did you decide you needed in addition to music that's part of the narrative, a score, and what was it for?
Yeah, as for the diegetic music, it was I just what we were talking about, that the man cannot show really his world to the audience, because it's only through her eyes, and then I came up with the idea while I was developing the screenplay that I could give him music if I make him a music enthusiast, it is quite easy to achieve. You know, it's you don't have to make a lot of scenes about that, but it adds so much to the character, depth and emotional intelligence maybe, and that he also has something behind him what is really big and gorgeous, and you understand.
Yeah.
And then I came up with this idea with the trout, which is a very well-known piece of music, and then I decided to use Schubert for him in these scenes, and I particularly love this piece of the Winterreise cycle of Schubert, this Good Night song, and it is sang by Dietrich Fischer Disco, and I think that's wonderful recording. So that is for the diegetic music. And as for the score, when we were editing the film, we felt that we definitely need a score. So it won't do, this film won't do without accompanying music. But we were using temp music, and my editor is really talented in picking pieces of music that fit well. So we used some pieces from other films from the series The Affair, and they worked really well, and I became more and more frustrated by how well they were, because they were music from other films, you know, that you cannot use. And when I met Gábor Keresztes, who finally did the score for us. It was the film was already almost done, the editing. It was a complete thing, and he started to work on that. And he also had a really subtle approach towards this whole thing, and he used our sound design also. For instance, like trams and such things he constructed into his music, and then we tried his pieces, and then I cannot even recall anymore these temporary music pieces we used. I don't even remember them. So
yeah, it's a terrific score. I mean, the whole sound design of the film is wonderful. So is the image, so is the acting, so is the script, so is the direction. And I could talk to you forever because it is so mysterious, and it's still so mysterious why it's just a great film. So thank you very, very much for doing this Q&A, and I hope I see many more films from you.
Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you.